Sam, how are both of these teams 2-1? How in the world are both of these teams 2-1?
Just to start off, I love when we play the Bears, not only just because we know so many Bears fans and it's like fun to go head to head, but I feel like the Giants and the Bears are some of the most similar teams in the NFL. So like when we go up against each other, it's like, okay, which one of these teams that's literally going through the same stuff as us is going to be the better team. So I always feel like it's a good gauge when we play the Bears. How they're 2-1, I have no idea. I definitely would have thought that the Bears would be 0-3 at this point, and probably wouldn't have been surprised if the Giants were the same. But it's very interesting. I mean, Justin Fields is a great quarterback in a very bad situation, but he seems to be working it as best he can. And it's just the weirdest thing in the world. But here we are, going into week 4 with 2-1 teams.
I like that you brought up the similarities between the Giants and the Bears because, like, I always thought they were similar in the sense that they're both two of the oldest franchises in the NFL, and they're also two teams that have been historically known for having really good defenses. I mean, you have the Giants, you have the big blue wrecking crew, the Bears, and like, I don't know, like the 60s were the monsters of the Midway, and obviously everybody knows about the legendary 85 Bears squad. So yeah, in that sense, like, even though the Bears, and I kind of feel the same way about the Packers too. I never really despise them, even though they're like, you know, semi-Giants rivals to an extent because they've played a lot of big games against each other. I just always thought it was cool that they like have the same similar history with the Giants. And also they both play in two of the biggest media markets in football, New York and Chicago. So there's that going for them. And another thing that really that's often been interesting about the Giants and the Bears games, I think I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like every time we play each other, it's usually the home team that wins. Because I think the last time we lost to them at home, I want to say that was the Devin Hester game when Jay Feely missed the field goal and Hester took it all the way to the end zone.
That was a while ago, actually, now that I think of it.
2006.
Yeah, I was going to say Jay Feely on the field. And
then the last time we beat them in Chicago was the year later. That was the Reuben Drones game.
So the Giants have lost the last 3 matchups against the Bears. They played 2019, they played 2020, and they played last year. We won that overtime game back in 2018, 30-27. That was the year the Bears went 12-4. But I think what's really cool about this weekend, Hank, you mentioned old school rivalry. The Giants will be wearing old school uniforms, the 80s and 90s uniforms. I don't know about you. I might have to crank out the old LT jersey that I got, the Super Bowl 25 patch. That's the only jersey I have that resembles what the Giants will be wearing.
I have a few of those. The OG LT jersey is obviously in the OG studio back in New York, but the other 2 jerseys I have that are similar, I have a Carl Banks, as you probably know. I recently got a Harry Carson, and I also recently got a Michael Strahan jersey of the model that they are currently wearing those in. So
nice.
Those have always been my favorite of the Giants old school uniforms.
So they have the like the trim on the sleeves now, right? Like that's what they're going to be wearing. So. Why don't they just make that their regular jerseys?
And I also love how inside one of the collars it says "Once a Giant, always a Giant."
Does it really?
Yes.
I love that.
Wellington Mara, yeah. Cool. Yeah, but the Bears do lead the all-time series 36-24-2. Giants are just 13-18-2 against the Bears at home. They are favored by 3.5 points, though, and this Bears offense is disgusting. They are not good at all. I don't think we're going to see another 29-3 game that we saw last year at Soldier Field. This is not Mike Glennon. Daniel Jones is not going to only complete 4 passes. I can guarantee you that much. But yeah, it's been a while since the Giants beat the Bears. 2018, that game we mentioned, the Bears, they're coming off a win against the Houston Texans, 23-20 at home. The Texans only one of 2 NFL teams that have not won a game yet. That's not a very convincing win for me if I'm Chicago. You have 2 first-year head coaches, Brian Daboll against Matt Eberflus, so offensive mind against defensive mind. And Sam, you mentioned the similarities. The Bears defense gives up 19 points per game. The Giants defense gives up 19.7 points per game.
That's what I'm
Right
saying.
on.
I'm literally saying that. Like, it's the craziest thing that they are so similar in so many aspects.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, when we talk about this game, I think stopping the run is going to be huge, though. I think if the Bears do one thing well offensively, it's run the football, because we saw David Montgomery go down last week and Khalil Herbert took off. The Bears had 281 rushing yards. That was most in a single game for them since 1984. Khalil Herbert had 157 of those yards and 2 touchdowns. That guy's a one-cut runner who loves the outside zone runs. And the Bears run the football 65% of the time. That's the most in the NFL. And their offensive line isn't as bad as it used to be. I think that's what saves them a little bit as far as running. I think their O-line is similar to ours, except they don't have 2 bookend tackles. I'll give you that. I think their guards are better than their tackles, and Cody Whitehair and Tevin Jenkins. Those guys are very good run blocking, and that's why the Bears lead the NFC with 560 rushing yards. That's definitely a concern, especially with Leo not practicing today. That's one area that I'm like, oh shit, like that's a lot of pressure on Dexter Lawrence. Tay Crowder might be the worst linebacker I've seen wear a Giants uniform. No offense, with the way he played Monday night against Dallas, acting like he's Superman ever since that hit to Derrick Henry. Now he's going in for the bulldozing head.
I feel like with this, like every single team that we've played so far this year, everything has been about stopping the run.
Yeah.
So like week 1, obviously Tennessee was Derrick Henry coming in, and then week 2 was the Panthers and CMC. Last week, or this past week, was Zeke and Tony Pollard. And Tony Pollard, we saw, was just like all over the place. So I feel like going into this week, we're very familiar with stopping the run, and it's something that's very easily something we can do.
I know, and I feel like, yes, historically the Giants are good at stopping the run, but I mean, number 1 rushing, again, it's a small sample size, right? We can't think too much into it. I mean, hell, the Giants are 3rd at running the football in the NFL through 3 weeks, 508 rushing yards. So it'll be interesting, but yeah, especially if they don't have David Montgomery, because that man, he scored twice last year against the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to bring up our guest here in just a moment. Just want to get to this comment. I think Akeem Hicks is on the Bucs, Steve. Yes. Apologies if I got that wrong. Steven, this comment will be talked about another time. I'm not going to get into this right now because this comment could be a whole show in itself. Yeah, that's a bold comment. In all due respect, I'd rather avoid that one for right now. But let's bring up our guest for the evening from the Bear Down Girl podcast, Katelynne Lener. Katelynne, welcome back to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me back.
Hi, Katelynne.
Hey.
Very familiar face. Very familiar face.
Yeah.
I feel like we play these every year.
What's that? She was on her 2nd ever episode of the show, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
Yeah, you might be right about that.
Look at that.
Right about that.
Look at that.
Thanks to Gabe Flayton. We were trying to find a Bears fan back in 2020, and then Gabe reached out to you or something like that. I'm like, wow. First off, welcome, and I'm excited. It seems like every year the Giants play the Bears now. All of a sudden, it seems like a recurring game.
Probably because they're some of the worst teams, so they end up facing each other.
Through that.
I want to hear from you about the Bears running game. It seems like it's been the only source of offense the first few weeks, especially last week. Justin Fields, statistically wise, didn't have a good game, but you tell me, what is it that impresses about this running game? Is it, the offensive line and their combo blocks? Is it, does Justin Fields play a role in that? Like, what is it about this Bears running game that has had so much success?
I think it's the actual running backs we have, David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. I think I've always believed in them, and I just felt like in the past under Nagy, they weren't utilized enough in the offense. And I think now these new coaches are actually, I think that's also a benefit. These coaches are actually making an effort to run the football, so we're more successful at it. Last week, the run blocking was really good, so I do want to give them credit. But for the most part, it's just these running backs we have and the fact that the coaches are making an effort to run the football.
Hank, Sam, you've got an opening question for Katelynne?
Yeah, I do. I definitely, I know that you were a big Mitchell Trubisky girl when he was on the team. So obviously Justin Fields is in and he's, doing his best. How are you feeling about him right now? And, what are you feeling like he's going to do for the future?
So I definitely like him better than Mitchell. I'll give you that.
Really? Wow.
I just think Justin has his intangibles come into play. Like he can just kind of make magic happen sometimes with his athleticism and his legs, getting outside the pocket, making big plays down the field. He kind of has that wow factor that Mitchell never really had. And so I think it just all needs to come together for him. And he still has a lot of like progression and a lot of like developing, because I think in his decision making that can be questionable at times. But for the most part, I mean, what I expected from him, his athleticism is kind of off the charts. And it's definitely different for the Bears to have a quarterback with, his style and his kind of like wow factor. We're not used to like big playmakers like that at the quarterback position. And I think just like he never kind of shies away from like big moments. Like I do see him kind of like make plays when we need it most. So he definitely, I see the little things that are going to make a great quarterback. He just needs to develop a little bit more.
Definitely.
Hank?
So my question would be this. So with the injury to David Montgomery, do you think Khalil Herbert is going to be the one that is capable of stepping it up for the remainder of the year at running back?
Absolutely. Even last year, he had to fill in for a couple games, and he did great. And when David Montgomery is hurt, so I feel like they're also similar in the style of like their style of running. So it's not going to be too much of a transition to Khalil Herbert. And I think some people say like Herbert has a little bit more shiftier and can kind of make guys miss a little bit more than maybe David. Like especially the bad weather they experienced week 1. David Montgomery could not play well in those situations, but Khalil Herbert could. So I think I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference, having Khalil Herbert in the lineup. I think that this run game will still just be as good.
Yeah, I like Khalil Herbert a lot. Outside zone runner. A lot of people label him as more of a one-cut back. I sort of disagree with that. I don't know if you have any opinions on that, or if you've seen enough of him to really diagnose what type of running back he is. Because I remember in the game last year, he only had 2 carries, but I think the fact that you have him, it takes a lot of pressure off of Justin Fields. No. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know. Do you agree with the one cut stigma, like outside zone guy, or do you think he has that north and south capability?
No, I think he does. I just think there's not a lot of film on him because we haven't really used him a lot, especially last year. So I do think he the kind of running back he is. He's kind of the guy who can make guys miss tackles. Basically, he's a tough dude to get down. Like he, gets a lot of yards after contact. So I it's hard for me to make an assessment on what kind of running back he is based off of just how much we've seen him. We haven't really seen him that much.
Right. I kind of want to get to one of your keys to the game, I guess, Katelynne. Like, what is one of the keys for you for the Bears in order to defeat the Giants on Sunday? Because obviously the Giants are an improved team with a new coaching staff, similar to the Bears, new coaching staff. Both teams cleaned house in the offseason. So both teams in a similar spot right now.
So I think offensively for the Bears, I need them to get some kind of passing game going, something like more dynamics in the passing game. Still try to run the football. That should be the key. But I feel like we need to add some more big plays in the passing game just to give more diversity to this offense, because if we become one-dimensional, it's just defenses are going to easily figure that out and be able to stop that. For the Bears defense, I think the number one goal is to contain Saquon Barkley, because that's pretty much the Giants' whole offense at this point. Like, he seems to be kind of, I don't know, from my perspective, you guys might have obviously more knowledge on this, but from what I've seen so far, he seems to kind of be back to his old form. So I feel like if he's kind of the guy you want to shut down.
As far as Saquon goes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's been really good the first few weeks. Second in the NFL in rushing, 6 yards a carry, and he's had 3 big runs, averaging 105 yards a game. And if I'm not mistaken, I was talking about this before the show. Akeem Hicks is gone, right? Eddie Goldman retired. And then
we have like a whole new defensive line, basically.
Like, Bilal Nichols is gone too, right?
Yep. We signed
Jones.
Justin Jones. We signed him in free agency. Dominique we drafted. He's kind of been contributing a little bit in the pass rush. But yeah, our defensive line doesn't have like a lot of big names. It's kind of like our linebackers who are kind of like leading the charge right now in terms of pass rush and, making stops.
So I'll go back to Hank and then Sam here. Hank, what's your next question?
So my next question would be, the Giants and the Bears, as we've all pretty much alluded to, have a lot of similarities, especially right now. If we look at the current teams, both of them came into the season having cleaned house. How long do you think it will probably take for the Chicago Bears to improve and truly clean up on the mess that the previous regime made?
So I know a lot of people are saying like this year is kind of just going to be a wash for the Bears. It's just kind of like a rebuild year. I think they can also still have some success because they do have a lot of big names on defense who can make plays. But offensively, so I think they can be a competitive team this year, but in terms of like really getting back into being like maybe a potential playoff team, it's probably not going to happen until at least next season, because in the offseason we'll have more money to spend. So obviously the goal is they need to get a number one wide receiver. This is what they're lacking. They're lacking a big playmaker in the receiving core. So there's still a lot of moves that need to be made in terms of getting offensive playmakers. So it's probably going to take a year or two.
Yeah, no, I definitely think you're going to need some more offensive playmakers, because really, no offense, but like with looking at the Bears roster, there's not a lot of names that really impress me. And
no,
I'm sorry if I'm going to be picking on one of your guys, but Cole Kmet, like didn't have his first catch until week 3. Good Lord.
I think my one thought on Cole Kmet, because I think he can be good for the Bears, I just don't think they use him a lot. And so finally he got some like targets last week. So if they actually, I don't know, make an effort to try to get him involved, I think he can make some plays. I still don't know about him. I really don't.
Let's piggyback off that. The Giants have DoorDash linebackers, so I think he should have a decent game this week.
That's good to know.
Well, I mean, historically, we have had trouble covering tight ends, so
let's not wrong. I think all oppositions know that at this point. Sam, anything else you want to ask Katelynne?
I think I just wanted to piggyback off of something that Hank was saying in his question, which was talking about the previous regime and this new regime that you have now. Like, how are you feeling about, Eberflus and Poles as your new GM? Like, are you guys feel like this is a future thing, or are you feeling like, I don't know, this might not be too good?
Eberflus, I'm definitely on board with. I think he brought to the Bears is what this team needed the most: discipline. This defense being about getting takeaways. I just think it's more organized, put together with Nagy and his team. You just never knew what to expect from him. He wasn't, as always, transparent. There was no organization. Even players this offseason, when they talked about, Eberflus, they said how they kind of know what to expect every day when they come into work. And basically, like, there's some organization with this coaching staff. So I think he's bringing discipline and great defense back to this team. So I'm excited about that. Obviously, he doesn't handle the offense, so it's going to be really about seeing if Getsy can really bring Justin and this offense along. That's the big question mark for me. Ryan Poles, I think he inherited a bad situation. He's trying to fix this offensive line first and foremost, and he made a ton of moves to try to do that. And I guess we'll have to wait and see this season if it does kind of like work out. but I think he needs to be a little bit more aggressive in free agency next offseason for sure.
Sounds a lot like Joe Shane. That's all I've got to say. These two teams are too much alike. Too much alike. Like, historically, both of our franchises are excellent. Like, they're top of the tier franchises all time. But over the last several years, it has not been good for either of us, really. I'd say more so the Giants than the Bears. But Katelynne, my next question for you is about the bread and butter of the Bears, and it always seems to be the defense, right? The defense. And, I caught a few minutes of your podcast this week, and you were praising the defense. Defensively, you spent early draft picks on guys like Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker, the safety out of Penn State. What has impressed you about each of them so far this season?
I think Brisker, I was pretty high on him going into the season because it felt like he was the most pro ready. He could definitely fit his style of play definitely fits well with this new defense we're running, being like the ball hawk safety that he is. And he's always, around the ball. He's always making the tough tackles. So I'm not surprised with his play. I'm excited for him. Kyler Gordon, it's been a struggle so far watching him because he's definitely getting picked on. Quarterbacks are targeting him, trying to test him basically. And he's giving up a lot of big plays, not great in coverage. So I think, if the Giants going into this week's game, they probably are going to see that, okay, we should probably target him a lot because he's giving up a lot of big plays. So I think he still has a lot of room to grow. And so I don't know about him so far.
I like your answer. I'm not too big on Kyler Gordon yet. I like Jaquan Brisker a lot more. I think he's more pro ready, being that he played in the Big Ten, is where Kyler Gordon, I think, came out of Washington, right? So he was rumored to be a first round pick, but he didn't pick till the second round this year. So I think, having him slip was definitely a little bit concerning. But going back to our keys of the game here, we mentioned the similarities for this team. And Hank, I want to get to you here. Can you tell me what your key of the game is for the Giants as far as beating Chicago?
All right.
Or multiple, if you have.
My key to this game, oh boy, I would have to say, first and foremost, it's got to be, stopping the run. I think that was definitely the Bears' strong suit in their win against the Houston Texans last week. And, I think if they can stop the run, then I feel like, you make the quarterback beat you. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Justin Fields definitely will be a solid QB, but I think with the way this defense is, they're going to have trouble handling the blitz. So I think stopping the run is going to be one huge element to winning this game for the Giants. Well, so it's getting off the field on third down, but I think I'm kind of
What about you, Sam?
Well, Hank took mine because I'd say that stopping the run is going to be Hank's getting off the field on third down. But I'll just say probably just making sure that the Giants offensive line is able to stop the Bears defense and give Daniel Jones a chance to throw the ball, because that was a big thing last week with the Cowboys, and now we're off a short week, so that's one less day for them to prepare. So I would just say give DJ a chance.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is pressuring Justin Fields, because we didn't see much of that with Cooper Rush last week. And Katelynne, you would know best, but I think Fields is one of the more vulnerable quarterbacks in the league when it comes to throwing under pressure. He's ranked 30th among all QBs right now and completing only 51% of his passes. He also holds the ball longer than any QB in the NFL. My biggest thing, though, is don't let Fields get the ball down the field to Darnell Mooney. We saw what Cooper Rush did with CeeDee Lamb last week. Mooney did score a touchdown in the Giants game last year. Also, fun fact, did you know that Dante Pettis is on the Bears? Fun fact.
Oh, I know.
Fun fact. But another concern too, Katelynne, I think the receiving core for the Bears is just not great. I know Velus Jones Jr. is questionable. Pringle's on the IR. And then I know I'm going to butcher his name. Equanimous St. Brown leads the Bears with 77 receiving yards through 3 weeks. I mean, let me know if you disagree, but that's just not going to cut it in the NFL.
No, yeah, that's my biggest issue with this team right now is their wide receiver situation. It's kind of been my biggest issue this whole offseason. So Darnell Mooney, he struggled early on. If they could get him going, that could open up this offense.
I also think that putting pressure on Justin Fields will help the Giants defense more likely to cause turnovers. The Giants have yet to force an interception this year, 3 weeks in. So I think that'll be very important. And obviously, Hank and Sam and myself all agree on this. We have to protect Daniel Jones. And I'm sure one key for the Bears, too, is to protect Justin Fields. But for Jones specifically, he faced the most pressure in his 3+ year career on Monday Night Football. And I think what Monday night taught us all, not just as Giants fans, but as football fans, is to not judge by a quarterback solely based off statistics. So many fans do, including us. We're all a little guilty of it, but a lot of people do that. And I had Cowboys fans text me saying Daniel Jones had one good game. He just couldn't get off his feet. Katelynne, what did you see from Jones Monday night? Did you see a guy who was really working his tail off and just couldn't get any time? It kind of sounds like Justin Fields a little bit, no?
I do see a lot of similarities with their situations. I don't know, no offense, if Daniel Jones can be the guy for you guys. I just don't. I don't see enough from him to kind of like. I don't know. I just think Justin, at least with him, he can provide some wow factor. I don't know what I'm getting from Daniel Jones.
Interesting.
I would agree with that. I feel like
I don't disagree with that either.
As much as, we are Daniel Jones supporters here on this show. We do want to see Daniel Jones succeed, because if you don't, that's just so silly because he's your quarterback on your team. But yeah, Justin Fields does have something else about him. The run factor, he's kind of a little bit more on the flashier side, and that's not like a bad thing in any way. But Daniel Jones, shows up to games in a button-down shirt and khakis. And he looks like he's coming from an accounting office. So it's kind of like, not having that kind of quarterback is not a bad thing. I don't mind it, but I definitely feel what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think Jones, he needs to try to pick on Kyler Gordon. Like you were saying, Katelynne, before, Gordon has looked a little vulnerable in the first few weeks. Similar to the Giants, their number 2 corner has been very vulnerable. It's put a lot more pressure on Adoree Jackson. But Katelynne, if you can give me one player to watch from the Bears this week and one player to watch for the Giants.
Ooh, good question. The Bears, one player to watch. I'd say Darnell Mooney, because we're still waiting for a breakout game from him. He hasn't really done anything in the passing game. And this whole offseason, it's been talked about how Justin and Darnell worked out a lot during the offseason together, kind of getting on the same page. And so I kind of want to see that come to fruition in a game finally, and see Darnell Mooney have like a big game. In terms of the Giants, man, that's a good question. Probably Daniel Jones, because with him, I still have a lot of question marks. And I think, if the defense, if I'm looking at it from a Bears fan perspective, if the defense can kind of force him into bad situations or, throwing interceptions, that's going to be a plus for us. So I guess just to get a little more understanding of how much he's developed so far.
Fair. Sam, who do you got?
Let's see. I'll do running backs on both sides. I'll do Saquon Barkley on our side, just to show he needs more reps. He's the one who's going to put points on the board for us. It's very obvious these past 3 weeks that he stepped up to the plate, and we need him to do that. And I'll do Khalil Herbert on the Bears side, because obviously it's kind of a similar situation where the run game for the Bears is something that's really important, and it's something that we need to keep an eye on.
I'm going to go with Robert Quinn from the Bears. I know he's been struggling this year. He only has 1 sack, which obviously is nowhere close to the total he had last year, which I believe was a single season Bears record that was broken, one previously held by Richard Dent, if I'm mistaken. I still think he can be a threat, but if I'm going to go with Robert Quinn, then I'm going to go for the Giants side, and I feel like I take this guy numerous times, but I got to go with Andrew Thomas since he's probably going to be one of the guys that's going to be tasked with, trying to stop him. So I don't know. It's always the Andrew Thomas against big defender XXX that always intrigues me every week with the Giants. That's just me.
I like those picks a lot. Robert Quinn, definitely a fierce pass rusher. For me, it's going to be Roquan Smith, though. 16 tackles last week against Houston, 2 in the backfield, 1 pick, 1 pass defended. This guy's the whole package. His interception helped set up a game-winning field goal for Cairo Santos, leads the Bears with 36 tackles. Before I get to my player watch for the Giants, Katelynne, I forgot to ask you about Roquan Smith. I'm sorry. How important is he to this football team, and how happy are you to see him back on the field?
Yeah, just to mention, like that game last week, he didn't practice at all leading up to that game because he was dealing with like some kind of hip injury. He was questionable to play, but showed once again that he's such a tough player, and he's all over the field. His speed is what this defense needs, and he can. I think he's developed so far where he can also make plays, getting takeaways, and he's just such a fierce part of this defense. Like in the middle of the defense, he can stop any running back. So he's so important. I'm just so excited to have him playing this season. Hopefully they can extend him after the season, but he's such a superstar in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that Bears defense scares me. You have Robert Quinn on the first level, Roquan on the second, and then Eddie Jackson on the third level, who has 2 picks already this year. So, definitely veteran safety as well. Definitely a concern. But for the Giants, I'm going to go with Kayvon Thibodeau. I think he should be able to exploit his matchup against 5th-round rookie Braxton Jones, starting at left tackle. Can Jones and Borum contain Thibodeau and Ojulari? I'm not so sure. Katelynne, what have you seen from those 2 offensive tackles so far?
So Braxton I'm impressed with because the fact as a rookie, he was basically already our starting left tackle right from the beginning. So he developed very quickly on. I think with Borum, he can be a great run blocker, but pass protection for these tackles is still a question mark. This offensive line in general struggles. So that may be something to watch because it's still a concern for the Bears.
I agree. And I do have one honorable mention for the Giants I want to throw out there. And this is a guy who I think could cause some problems on Sunday, especially now with Sterling Shepard being out, not knowing who that go-to player is going to be in the passing game, is rookie tight end Daniel Bellinger, a guy who 3 games, he's only caught 5 passes, but he has 1 touchdown, and 51 of his 56 yards have come after the catch. Really good blocking tight end as well. He's already the 7th ranked tight end on Pro Football Focus through 3 weeks, which is very impressive. A guy who may have not even been in the top 7 tight ends in the rookie class this year as far as his position goes. So I'm very excited about him and what he has to offer. But moving on to the injury report, we'll start with the Bears. David Montgomery did not practice today. He has a knee and ankle issue he's been nursing. Matt Adams also did not practice, along with Ryan Griffin, Jalen Johnson with a quad issue, Robert Quinn, who's battling an illness. Katelynne, how concerned are you? I have to ask you about David Montgomery. How concerned are you about him not playing this week?
Honestly, because Herbert is playing so well, like obviously I want both of them out there because it just a dual threat is what I would prefer. But I can be okay with him missing this game because I have faith that Herbert can still be just as successful. Anyway,
That motorcycle and injuries.
Apologies, Katelynne. Come on.
Okay. So I'm not as concerned with him missing a game because I believe in Herbert. I think the big name that we should be looking at for Bears is Jalen Johnson. He's our starting cornerback, and he missed last week, so that hurt us a little bit. But the first 2 weeks he wasn't getting targeted at all because he's so good at covering receivers, and him potentially being out, it's going to be more focused on Kyler. So, Jalen possibly not playing is a big concern.
And Hank, if you want, go through the Giants injury report here and tell us who you think is the biggest concern for you.
So obviously we have Cordell Flott, who did not play due to a calf injury. And I think you probably have an idea as to who I'm going to say for the Giants. I would say Leonard Williams did not practice due to a knee injury. And look, we already discussed this earlier at the beginning of the show. Leonard Williams was a massive loss for the Giants. And while I'm not saying a win against the Bears would be impossible without him, I think having him would definitely help. But I mean, look, I'm not 100% optimistic in the chances of him playing because, like I said, for him to even miss one game when you consider how many games he's played over the course of his career, something bad had to have happened. And then we got Nick Mcleod, who did not play due to a hamstring. Same with Kadarius Toney, also did not practice, and Wan'Dale Robinson are noticing a pattern here with some wide receivers.
They're all hurt.
That core is paper thin, and then we get to Aaron Robinson, member of our secondary. He had a limited practice due to an appendix issue, and then Jihad Ward also had limited practice due to a knee injury, and then Justin Lane had full practice, but that was because of concussion.
Yeah, I want Aaron Robinson back so bad. I think this is a week that we need him back in addition to Leonard Williams. If we can get those two players back, that would be ideal for me personally. Sam, anything you want to add here before we get into these game predictions?
Just the fact that Kadarius Toney is still not practicing, and it's like
That's the T.
It's the T. It's so ridiculous. But I won't go into it.
He's not even playing, but I don't want to get canceled like Alex Wilson did.
True. For that.
Game prediction. So, Katelynne, before we get into this, I'm not sure if you heard, but the three of us will be at the game this Sunday at MetLife Stadium. First Giants game of the year. We're all very excited to go. So we'll definitely take some pictures and whatnot. But I'll let you go first here. Who do you have winning this game? Obviously, I believe the line is Giants by 3.5. I don't know if that's still the line, but that's the last I saw as far as yesterday.
So I do believe, when I looked at the Bears schedule going into the season, I was like, okay, Giants, that's a winnable game. So I think the Bears are going to win based off of their defense, how great they've performed so far, our running game. I think we will probably finally get some big plays in the passing game with Justin, Darnell Mooney, which will just add another element to this offense. Score-wise, I think it's going to be, with these two offenses, it'll probably be low scoring still. So I'm going to say like 24-17 Bears.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I've the past 3 weeks on this show, I've been picking the Giants, and I'm kind of feeling like if I pick the Bears and I'm at the game, maybe it'll be like a thing that it'll be opposite of. But I am going to go with the Bears only because of how terrible the Giants were last week. I feel like they might just need one more game to just kind of recoup. I've kind of lost that little bit of confidence I had in them last week. So I am going to say the Bears are going to win. But it will be very, very close and very low scoring. I'm going 17-14 Bears.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, interestingly enough, my pick with Sam is very similar. I also have this game going no higher than the teams, but how I have the Giants winning, I'm going to go 19-14. It's going to be a defensive struggle.
19. Interesting. So that would mean...
Yeah, sometimes I like picking weird numbers for my scores.
Yeah, that would mean a touchdown and 4 field goals. So you like Graham Gano to have that big of a week, huh?
Well, the reason that I went with 19 was actually, it's funny. Usually when I pick these weird numbers, it's just like for the heck of it. But this time there's actually been some thought behind it. And yeah, Tom pretty much read my mind. I'm not like too high on who the Giants have offensively. And as I mentioned, the receiving core, paper thin. And that even includes an active Kenny Golladay, who has the same amount of catches as you and me, as Alec Walt said. So, yeah, no. Do you honestly think I would be confident in our offense getting into the end zone too often? Heck no. And as far as Graham Gano goes, it's Mr. Automatic right there. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. His name isn't Justin Tucker, but I digress.
So last week I picked Dallas, and that happened to be correct. Week 1 I picked Tennessee. That was incorrect, and I picked the Giants in week 2. I'm also going to go with the Giants like Hank this week, granted, because I'm at the game. I want to see a win. I can't pick against my team when I'm at the game. I actually have the Giants scoring a little bit this week. I think Barkley sets the tone. I think it'll be a battle between Barkley and Herbert in the running game. Both running games have been outstanding, but I have the Giants winning 24-16. I do think the Giants find a way to score 3 touchdowns, but not 3 offensive touchdowns. I have 1 defensive touchdown for the Giants being scored this week.
Makes
and
sense.
I do think that the Bears might get off to an early 3-0, 6-0 lead, and then the Giants come back. Also, I can't personally see us losing back-to-back home games. If this game was in Chicago, though, I'd probably be rolling with the Bears here. But that's how I feel about this one.
Well, again, that makes sense because, if you look at the pattern for every time we've played each other, it's usually the home team that wins.
We'll see. We'll see if that pattern continues or if it snaps. But, Katelynne, any final thoughts here before we say goodbye for the evening? Obviously appreciate having you on, and we'd love for you to plug in the Bear Down Girl podcast.
Oh, yeah, of course. So thanks again for having me on. I'm going to be doing a preview episode. I think it's going to be dropping Saturday morning. So Bears fans, you can listen to that. Get ready for the week 4 game against the Giants. I generally drop a recap and a preview episode, so 2 episodes per week. And you can follow the podcast on Twitter, Bear Down Girl Pod. The podcast is on iTunes, Spotify, however you listen to your podcasts. So, yeah.
I actually think we forgot to ask you one question that I'm going to ask you now. Apologies for this.
I know where this is going.
Swipe one player from the Giants. It could be any player. Just steal them from our team and put them on the Bears. Who are you taking?
So
no one.
Yeah, kind of no one, but we need a wide receiver, and Kenny Golladay doesn't seem to be doing anything for you guys, so maybe he could do something for us.
Oh, please.
Take him.
We're so desperate at this point for a wide receiver. We would take him off you guys.
Okay.
Please do.
To sort of quote something that Stephen A. ranted about when he talked about the Knicks many years ago, offer Kenny Golladay for a bag of cheese doodles.
Exactly.
Katelynne, thank you so much for your time, for joining tonight. Appreciate it very much. And best of luck to you Sunday. Look forward to hopefully beating you guys, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Katelynne. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Katelynne.
Bye.
All right. That was Katelynne Lener of the Bear Down Girl podcast. And I think she might be a little more optimistic than Andy with the Bears. I think Andy would probably have a similar opinion to her, but she does bring up some good points about how the blitz frequency of the Giants could potentially lead to Justin Fields getting some big plays through the air in this game, and our weak secondary, going up against a subpar offense. It could hurt us, but at the end of the day, one thing I learned from this interview tonight is that non-Giants fans still look, Daniel Jones has to earn his respect, right? I mean, he has the respect from us, but from other fans of other teams, he has to do better. He has to do better, I think the Giants fan base that is critiquing Daniel Jones for Monday night's loss is a little toxic, in my opinion, especially when Brandon Jacobs came out and said, this is one week you just can't blame him. I think literally Brandon Jacobs said he's not the problem. So I happen to agree with that. But again, he has to have a game this week where he controls the game and outplays Justin Fields, in my personal opinion. So, and I hope he does. Fingers crossed.
Yep, would be great. And we get to all be together for the very first time in our lives on Sunday.
That's right. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited. We're not going to reveal what section we're sitting in, folks, but if you want to meet up with us, hit us up on Twitter. We would love to meet up with you. Say hello, to put a name to the face, in person, that is. And Hank, Sam, any final thoughts here before we sign off?
Well, first, like I said, excited to head to the game this weekend. Just for the viewers' sake, I've personally never met Tom in person. I've met Hank at a Yankee game one time this past summer, but it's going to be fun that Big Blue Avenue will also all be in one place for the first time in history. But otherwise, even though I picked the Bears, I'm still, excited for the game. I'm optimistic. Love to see a good game being played. A lot of times I feel like that's all we can really ask for is just putting it all out on the field and leaving it all there. So that's all we can really hope for, and an entertaining game too. We're spending money to go see it at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not too often that I make the trip up to MetLife Stadium. In fact, well, it's become more often like as I've gotten older, but now it's just I usually go like maybe once or twice a year. But nonetheless, I'm glad I picked this day just because it would be a good day to run into both of you guys. And by the way, I'll tell you a fun fact. The Chicago Bears are actually going to be the first opponent that I will have seen the Giants play twice. The other game I saw them play happened to be in 2016 when Jay Cutler threw his final pass as a Chicago Bear. That was an interception.
Jay. You got to see Jay Cutler in real life. That's awesome.
22-16, the Giants won that game. And the weird part was, I remember I walked right into the stadium right when Chicago scored their opening drive touchdown, but then the Giants scored right back. And fun fact, that was also the first time in NFL history where both teams scored opening drive touchdowns and missed the extra point.
Wow. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Historian himself, Hank Victor.
That was only the second time that I saw the Giants get a win live. The first time was November of 2012 against the Saints.
Sorry, a little lag there on my end, but yeah, Hank has this weird storage in his brain to collect all this info. It's insane, but
it's amazing.
Before Thursday night football begins, folks, we do have a couple of announcements. The first one is this week we are honoring one of the founders of Review and Preview. Well, not really founder, but a big piece of Review and Preview, and Brian Marbach Jr., who sadly passed away around a year ago this time, September 24th, 2021. Each host that's hosted a show on our platform this week, has said some nice, encouraging words about him, even though almost none of our current members know or met Brian. We all know the impact that he had. I know, Sam, I probably don't meet you if it wasn't for Brian.
Very true.
So, anything the two of you just want to throw out there or anything? I know Brian's family, they're actually Packers fans, but Brian was a huge Giants fan in himself. And it was always fun doing the show with him. And he gave me a chance. He put a microphone in my hand and he hasn't been able to get it out of my hand since. So I just want to thank him personally for everything that he's done for me as an individual, as far as, growth in this industry. And a time I was living away from home, I didn't have any parents around in college. Brian served as somewhat of a father figure to me, so I can't thank him enough.
Yeah. I mean, I've never had the privilege of meeting Brian, but, like you said, if it wasn't for him and for Tom to be involved in Review and Preview, none of us would be here right now. None of us would be having these shows and having a fun time and being able to meet one another. So it's really a butterfly effect that is always for the better.
Yeah, I would say there are two people that I feel are pretty much responsible for all of us being on the stream right now. One of them, of course, is my co-host at Game On, Johnny Montalbano, who founded Review and Preview. But, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say that the other would be Brian Marbach. And unlike Johnny Montalbano, who I still do shows with on a weekly basis, I sadly never had the pleasure of meeting Brian Marbach, but I will say this, though, based on everything that Tom has told me through all the stories of when they worked together in years past, he is someone that I wish I would have had the good pleasure of working with and meeting. And he sounds like someone who had a very, very special impact on everyone he worked with. So, yeah, Tom, I think you pretty much said it best.
Yeah. Love Brian. And another comment. Thank you both very much for those kind words, by the way. I just want to throw one more thing. Thoughts and prayers go out to the people in Florida right now with Hurricane Ian going on. I know my parents live in Florida personally, and my little brother goes to school down there. Everyone's doing okay. I know we have some viewers from Florida as well. Actually, some members, 2 of our members live in Florida currently. So Garth and Albert, both of them are doing okay. Garth more towards the western Orlando area. Albert is more east of Orlando. So Albert got hit a little bit more harder than Garth. But thoughts and prayers go out to the people dealing with Hurricane Ian at the moment. But Steve gets in here the last minute. Tank the rain, man. Thanks, Steve.
That's one of my favorite movies, actually. I love that comment.
It's a great movie.
Right. But Thursday Night Football starts in about 1 minute, so we're going to sign off. Sam and Hank, thank you both so much for joining me here tonight. On behalf of Sam and Hank, my name is Tom Scavetta. You've been watching Big Blue Avenue here on YouTube and Facebook Live. Have a good night, everybody. And without further ado, let's go Big Blue.